This brings us to the liver. Women's livers are working very hard because women have a monthly hormonal cycle where there are lots of different hormones moving from a state of predominance and then suddenly being taken out of circulation to leave room for a different hormone that needs to take predominance. And this is happening in a very compressed period of time. So lots of different hormones moving through peaks and troughs over this concentrated time frame. This means that the liver is very busy because the liver is the primary site of sex hormone metabolism. It's the organ that's breaking down these hormones and taking them out of circulation so that other hormones can come into circulation and do their thing. So it's busy transforming hormones into their more active forms, as we said, breaking down and removing hormones from circulation, and also synthesizing transport proteins, which are responsible for carrying the hormones around the body. So the liver is very, very busy, particularly a woman's liver. So around the time, at any time, especially during that fertile period of a woman's life, during menarche, and moving into menopause, when there's this some big changes going on, we want to make sure the liver is freed up and not burdened by any extra things that we're putting into the body. Any extra burden is going to be counterproductive to hormonal balance. So this means even things like coffee, alcohol, any kinds of drugs, but even that means even pharmaceutical drugs, even Panadol and things like that, they all put a bit of a burden on the liver, an extra burden on the liver. Also things like hair and skin products that contain chemicals. Be careful with any of that sort of stuff. Foods that aren't organic, that contain pesticides, etc. These are all going to make the job of the liver more difficult. So be careful with that. In Ayurveda, it's considered that there's a really strong link between a woman's liver and her reproductive organs. So that's partly because of this hormonal metabolism that's going on. The way we look at it in Ayurveda is that the organ, the uterus, a woman's womb, and also the liver, they're both pitta organs. They're both organs that have an affinity for pitta because pitta rules the blood. Pitta rules the tissue, which is the blood. And so the liver and the woman's reproductive organs, these are both very closely aligned with this blood tissue. Someone just asked, do herbs also tax the liver just like pharmaceutical medicines? It depends on what herbs you're using. Yes, certain herbs can have a strong effect on the liver. Usually herbs that are prescribed by a practitioner are going to be supporting liver function. But that being said, strong liver herbs with strong alkaloids in them, for example, can place an extra burden on the liver that is unnecessary and potentially detrimental. Okay, so in looking at the liver, the next thing to look at from an Ayurvedic point of view is the concept of ama. So ama in Ayurveda means undigested waste, long A, M-A. In Ayurveda, our digestion, which we call Agni, or Jathara Agni, the central digestive fire, which is in the gut, lower part of the stomach, upper part of the small intestine. The Agni is busy breaking down everything that comes into the body. So anything we put in our mouth needs to be broken down, needs to be digested, needs to be transformed into something that is useful for the body, to form healthy tissues and enzymes and proteins and all the rest of it. Yeah. Now, when our digestion is not great, when it is compromised in one way or another, then we have excess waste that gets formed. And this waste has heavy, sticky, dense, damp sorts of qualities. So sticks to the ribs, if you like. It begins to accumulate in the gut. It further compromises the digestive processes, where all those little sphincters are squeezing in, secreting digestive secretions into the gut. Of course, if the gut is full of what effectively is like old, damp, sludgy mucus, then those digestive secretions aren't going to be able to get into the gut very easily. So the digestive capacity is further diminished, and as time goes on, those undigested waste products, they begin to create an environment in the gut where we have malabsorption, we have inflammation, we have increased gut permeability, and bigger molecules that are useful move across into circulation and begin to congest the lymphatic system. Because molecules that are large, such as fat molecules, they don't pass directly into the blood circulation. When they get absorbed by the cells of the gut wall, they get broken down in the gut, they get absorbed into the cells of the gut wall, then they get remanufactured into whatever they're being remanufactured into. For example, fats get broken down, they move into the cell, and then they get turned into triglycerides. And then instead of going into blood circulation, into capillaries, they're too big to do that. So they go straight into lymphatics. So big molecules, i.e. undigested waste molecules, also move into the lymphatics and into circulation via that route. So this is not so great, because anything that is moving in and congesting the lymphatics is congesting the waste transport system of the body. So in Ayurveda, we would say that this is what makes up the channels that carry rasa in the body. Rasa being that liquid, juicy component of this organism, and that's the medium of transport for everything. Whether we're getting nutrients to go from the gut to the tissues, or we're getting waste to go from the tissues back to the liver, so any transport of nutrients or wastes is all done via this medium. So we want it to be able to flow nicely and smoothly. It's got to be the right consistency. If it's getting filled up with gunk and sludge, i.e. undigested waste, in Sanskrit ama, that is being formed as a result of poor digestion or poor tissue metabolism, then this is going to cause problems for the transport of hormones. Now, we want hormones to get from A to B on time. If they're not, and they're lingering in circulation, then that's going to start to cause problems. So as well as wanting to keep the physiological functioning, the elements of the body that maintain our balanced physiological functioning, so they are the doshas, Vata, Pitta and Kapha, as well as keeping Vata, Pitta and Kapha on a nice even keel, what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to keep our digestion healthy so that this waste doesn't form. Because when the waste forms, everything goes stodgy. It's like our whole transport mechanism in the body gets a bit constipated. As well as that, the metabolic functions in the liver start to get compromised, because they're basically represented by more little digestive fires. As well as that, the metabolism of the tissues starts to get compromised, because they are also taken care of by more little digestive fires. The thyroid function can potentially become compromised, because it is also carried out by little metabolic digestive fires. So we want these little digestive fires to be working well. So when we look at weight increase, for example, in Ayurveda, what we look at is the fact that, okay, the little digestive fire responsible for the metabolism of fatty tissue into bone tissue is compromised in its function. It's not working so well. And usually this is because of this undigested waste moving through the circulation and finding its way to places where it shouldn't be. So, Dr. John Doulard, who is, that's spelt DOUILLARD, Dr. John Doulard, who is, his website is lifespa.com, SPA, lifespa.com. He talks a lot about lymphatics. He loves the lymphatics. And basically the lymphatics are his way of describing this transport medium, this rasa tissue in the body, responsible for transporting nutrients and also transporting waste wherever it needs to go for elimination. And so he describes it as the lymphatics are dealing with the waste removal process from the cells and the tissues, including the reproductive organs. And congestion in the lymphatics equates to compromised function and therefore potential hormonal irregularities. So he talks about the fact that even things like hormonal imbalances, PMS, cycle irregularities throughout menarche, throughout that reproductive phase of fertile reproductive phase of a woman's life, these are this is often, he says that many of those hormonal imbalances, what's actually happening is it's lymphatic congestion. And the symptoms that he talks about to look out for are swollen tender boobs, morning soreness and stiffness, so when you wake up feeling stiff and sore and achy, fluid retention and swelling, weight gain and belly fat, tiredness and lethargy, brain fog, diarrhea, or sticky constipation and other sort of digestive sensitivities or issues, allergies and food sensitivities, mild headaches and skin issues, so mild skin issues. All of these sorts of things are a sign that those lymphatic drains of the body aren't doing their job very well. They're congested. So I imagine that those little dot points for the symptoms, I imagine they ring some bells for a lot of people. And as you see, a lot of the symptoms also line up with some of those menopausal symptoms that we talked about earlier. So definitely there's some crossovers. So he discusses the need for a diet, an approach to eating in your day-to-day life that reduces AMA, that gets the digestion functioning well and reduces this load of undigested waste that's accumulated. Herbs that are going to do the same, that are going to kindle healthy digestion and help to burn that AMA. And to be honest, you can start with just simple kitchen spices. You don't have to go fancy on the herbs. It can be things like ginger. It can be things like cumin and coriander and fennel and all the kitchen herbs that you'd find in your garden. Basil and thyme and oregano and parsley, they're all really good for that sort of thing. Increasing our intake of warm fluids. And that can be in the form of warm water, especially first thing in the morning, warm water with a bit of lemon juice or a warm ginger tea with a squeeze of lemon and honey. You can also increase that warm fluid intake by just herbal teas through the day. Most herbal teas will have a diuretic effect. Obviously, have a variety. You don't want to overdo one or another because it can become rather than it being an everyday medicine, if you're using the same everyday medicine every day, then it begins to have a cumulative effect. So you don't want to be drinking, say, any particular herbal tea every single day, unless it's something simple, like a tea of coriander, cumin, fennel seeds. That's pretty benign. But some of the stronger herbal teas, you mix it up, keep it varied. Make sure you're getting regular exercise, and that's within your capacity. It can be a gentle walk. It can be going for a jog if that's what you're into. I wouldn't recommend it, but whatever you're into. And self-massage. Self-massage is very highly recommended when it comes to improving that circulation of lymphatics, because the lymphatics move through muscular contraction. So if you're not exercising, then you've got to do self-massage. And if you're not doing either, then your lymphatics aren't moving. And most of the time these days, we do lead very sedentary lives. And so it's important to be able to move, in order to move that lymph, that we're doing one or the other.